listening to Caroline crying as Nan hit her. Caroline was pulled into the bedroom about 10 minutes later and made to stand still. She was naked. Caroline almost fell over with fear as Nan followed behind her and slapped her down, and then as soon as Caroline had hit the floor, she dragged her upright by her hair. Caroline covered her face out of reflex every time Nan moved in anticipation of being hit. She was petrified. Nan told her, "Put your fucking hands down or I'll chop them off." Caroline was repeating, sorry Nan, over and over. I'd never seen someone so afraid. She was made to stand there for an hour. I was told to sit and watch her to make sure she didn't move off her spot. If she moved off her spot, I was told to get Nan immediately. I was 8. Caroline would have been 5 or 6. I did as I was told. I watched her knowing the ring was in my pocket the entire time, and that I'd said nothing because I was scared. I didn't want the beating Caroline had received, and yet knew somehow I wouldn't have. Maybe Caroline deserved it. This couldn't have been about a ring. Nan had never been like that with me. I justified it away, that Nan was always right, so Caroline must have done something really bad that I didn't know about. Caroline had done nothing wrong. I knew it, and yet I played Nan's game and I watched Caroline. This was the first time of many I would have to watch her stand straight. About 10 minutes went by and I pulled the ring out of my pocket and looked at it. Why had this ring caused so much trouble? I just wanted to play with Caroline. Caroline saw the ring in my hand as I sat cross-legged on the bed and her eyes went upwards. She looked at the ceiling and held her gaze there. Her long brown hair matted where Nan had dragged her around. She couldn't even look at me. And I realised I'd caused this. She was hurt because of me. I watched tears roll down the outside of her face as she tried to hold them back and then shook them off and returned her gaze to the ceiling. I couldn't have felt smaller. I went downstairs. You okay, Mom? I asked as she did the knitting. Yes, darling, I'm not angry with you, she said sweetly, as though she'd almost knocked out my sister. I entered the room a little more. Can Caroline come and play then? I asked her. No, Caroline's been very naughty. She's been stealing. She has to stay there for a bit, she replied. She didn't even look up. Her hands were still making that tick-tick-tick sound as she knitted. I found the ring. It had fallen behind the curtain, I said, putting my hand out. Nan put her knitting down gently and the ticking stopped. Did you take this? She asked gently, but in a tone I felt could mean I was in trouble. Yes, Mom, I just wanted to play with it for a bit, I mumbled. She laughed. Why didn't you just ask? You know you can play with my jewellery whenever you like. Just ask me first, she replied, all smiles. Sorry, Mum, won't happen again, I said, waiting for my thick ear. Come here, she said playfully. I was still expecting a slap, but I stepped forwards. Nan hugged me, took my hand in hers and tapped it gently. That's for not asking. Don't do it again, she said. Okay, sorry, Mum, I replied, walking back up the stairs towards Caroline. Nan was close behind me. I saw Caroline flinch as Nan came into the room. You're starting to annoy me, girl, Pat said. Caroline said nothing. Why was Caroline annoying Nan? She had just been told it was me who'd taken the ring. I looked at Nan. Why didn't you tell me he'd taken it? She asked, staring at Caroline from 3 feet in front of her. Caroline looked at me. Nan bent forwards, eye to eye with Caroline, closing the space between them a few inches. He won't help you. Nobody will. You live with me now, and you'll do as you're told. Understand? Nan said harshly. Caroline nodded. What? Nan asked, stepping forwards and almost touching her. Yes, I understand, Caroline stuttered. Your hour starts now, Nan said. She left the room with her yellow leather flip-flops slapping against her flat feet as she went down the hall. I followed Nan. I couldn't watch Caroline standing there, naked. Chapter 4. Not only did we have Mom, Dad, Jonathan and Jodie living on the same road as my Nan, Grandad Alan, Caroline and me, but we also had 2 uncles and 2 aunts as well, Uncle Leslie and Auntie Lisa. Uncle Leslie was a quiet round fellow with light hair and deep voice, and Lisa was a total opposite, a thin chatty alcoholic who was borderline screechy. Leslie liked to drink as well, and although he was a regular presence and quiet enough, he always had an odd vibe about him I couldn't quite place. So he was always acting relaxed, but was really awkward around people. They'd come over to see Pat and Alan. I was playing Buckaroo on the floor, which I'd got into when I had tonsillitis. Caroline wasn't allowed to play with me. She was told to be on her best behaviour for when they'd turned up. She was sat quietly in the corner in her nightgown. Alan was watching TV. He didn't seem to agree with how Nan treated Caroline, but he never spoke up to stop it either. Lisa asked Pat why Caroline was still in her nightclothes, as it was after lunchtime, and Pat replied that she'd told her to get dressed, but she wouldn't, so she was being punished by not being allowed to play. Later on, Caroline asked if she could play with the dolls, and she was told no, flatly, by Nan. Lisa seemed to like Caroline and wanted her to be able to play games with us all. The cards had come out and we were all playing Crash. "Can I play with the dolls, please, Nan?" Caroline asked gently. "Yes, with pleasure," Nan replied. Caroline sat still for 5 minutes, a little bit closer to our group playing cards, and then gingerly said, "Where is it, Nan?" as she clutched the one doll she'd be allowed to play with. "Where's what?" Nan asked, sighing like she'd been stopped midway through picking up £50. "The pleasure," Caroline replied innocently, unaware of what it was she was saying. This story was retold by Nan many times when someone asked about Caroline to point out how unwell mentally she was, and why she was under whichever punishment Nan had designated for her at that time. Caroline had no mental problems. She had a stutter because she'd been scared so much as a child. Unfortunately, the story sums up how Nan was with girls perfectly. There was no pleasure. I am ashamed of my own actions, even though I was around 8 years old. I am ashamed that I said nothing to prevent these occurrences. I presume them normal, but not half as ashamed as I am about the nighttime events. I had started to have bad nightmares. I didn't know why at the time. However, I had a naturally vivid imagination in the daytime, and the negative things going on around me can't have helped. They usually involve monsters or the woman from Prisoner Cell Block H who used the press, a program Nan loved and would let me watch before bed. The nightmares were so bad I refused to sleep in my own room because it felt like I was being watched, or I could see faces in my curtains. I remember clearly waking up one night convinced my pillow was a head next to me. I lay there for ages screaming until my Nan came in and turned the light on. Even then, the pillow had the same look about it, like it could change at any minute. So I slept on the floor in Nan Ellen's room. I never questioned why Caroline was stood up beside the old black and white TV, or why a plastic potty was underneath her. I knew Caroline had told Lisa she didn't like it at Nan's and was to be punished for it. "Knickers down," Nan said calmly, watching TV. "Sit," she said. Caroline did as instructed. "Stand, knickers up." Caroline did as she was asked. I looked at Nan thinking that was the end of it. "Carry on," she said. Caroline did, repeating the process. Alan had his head in a Western book beside Nan in bed. I was on the floor in front of Caroline, lay down with my legs stretched out. "Keep going," Nan said, before she fell asleep. Nan and Alan would watch Married with Children, Hale and Pace, Prisoner Cell Block H. And Caroline? Well, some nights she collapsed. Some nights she fell asleep on the floor. If Nan woke up and Caroline wasn't doing what Nan had come to call potty practice, she'd kick her until she continued. Other nights, I was told, if she stops, you wake me up. The first time Nan was asleep, Caroline looked at me pleadingly. I shrugged my shoulders. What was I to do? I was given orders. I sat watching her. The TV had gone to the night screen thing. We'd watch Marriage with Children, Hale and Pace and Prisoner Cell Block H. All the while Caroline had done potty practice. She must have been so tired, and yet she continued, because I was awake and I was told to watch her. I remember the really bad nights where I tried throwing myself into the television because I couldn't look at Caroline without feeling guilty. The nights where she begged to stop. She said she was sorry. She said please over and over as she slapped herself in the face in anger. And she was told, "You finished your paddy," by Nan. Caroline would stand up and arch her back because she ached and look at Nan for respite. "Carry on," Nan would say. And so she did. Whenever family came over again, Nan was totally different with Caroline. I enjoyed these times. Caroline was told to go and put a dress on. It was black and red and looked great. Alan would put on Buddy Holly, Elvis or the Beatles on the CD player and be asked to dance together. We danced rock and roll style to all the songs and had a great time. It was the only time I got to dance with Caroline. It felt nice. It felt for a short while like we were both on the same level playing field, like both her and I were free and really brother and sister. Not like either of us were treated differently. I loved to dance. There was something special about being the centre of attention and showing off exactly how we could move. It was hypnotic, and I thoroughly enjoyed coming up with new routines together. When it was just me, Alan, and Nan again, things were back to normal. Caroline had started pulling her hair when she thought nobody could see her. Nan told people it's just she was retarded, that the doctor had said to leave her to it and she'll stop in time. She wasn't retarded, nor had she seen a doctor. She was frustrated and stressed, and who wouldn't be? She wanted to escape her life the same way I'd wanted to in her situation. However, a big part of me believed that Nan was right. I had no reason not to, and Nan had taken care of me through everything, without complaining once, so I believed Caroline must have done something to deserve the treatment. However, I won't justify my lack of action by saying I knew no better. However, I will say I was a child who was led by adults who should have known better, and I am not fully responsible for that reason. I'd been programmed to allow harm and sometimes to cause it. "Pull your hair again, my girl, I'll pull your head off," Nan warned, pointing her knitting needle towards Caroline like a rapier ready to strike. "Want a broom, Mum?" I asked, trying to ease the tension. "Please, darling," she said, lowering her needle and placing it back under her arm. "Don't upset her," I whispered through the side of my mouth as I walked past Caroline. When I came back in, Caroline had a chunk of hair twirled around her finger and was trying to eat it. I don't think Caroline even realised she was doing it. She must have been bored silly, just sat there. I guess she was hungry. I don't remember when she ate. Nan was walking towards her fast. "Mom!" I shouted, too late. She'd punched Caroline to the floor, grabbed her hair, yanking her up, slapped her, all in one fluid movement. Caroline was in tears immediately, her eyes dazed from the impact. Nan grabbed her hair and dragged her to the sofa arm and flung her over it, holding her hair. "Mom!" I shouted again. "What?" she said sharply. I stepped back, holding two brews. I must have looked shocked. "Sorry, darling, put 'em over there, yeah?" she said, sing-song chirpy, pointing to the coffee table. Caroline was trying to push her face out of the cushion, whilst most of Nan's weight held her down. Nan stood her up by her hair slowly, as though moving a chair out of the way, seemingly forgetting about the beating she'd just laid down on Caroline. "Potty practice," she said flatly, and pushed her through the hall towards the stairs. Nan, my mum, was always great with me. I was fed well when I was ill, and she always made sure I was taken care of. I was spoilt rotten, to be honest. Everything I wanted, I got. It was October. I'd already started filling in my Christmas list. Nan was in bed eating an onion sandwich, and I was on the floor with an open catalogue. I wanted a Master System 2 console like my friend had. I wanted the version with Alex the Kid on the inside. It was expensive. Nan told me the same thing she said every year. "Wait and see what happens, darling. You never know what Santa will bring." I got my Master System 2 around a week later. It was well before Christmas. Nan had spoken to Bernie and told her Caroline was not fixable. She couldn't handle her and me at the same time. Caroline would have to go. She was sent to live with Leslie and Lisa, who I was told really wanted children. She'd have more fun there than she ever did with us. For a while I wondered what Caroline was up to, if she was still chewing her hair, or if she had lots of toys. I was told not to worry about her, that she wanted to live with Leslie and Lisa, and so there wasn't any more. And she wasn't there anymore, and life would be back to normal for a short while. Nan took driving lessons with Clive, her son, who'd been driving for years. I remember him owning a Beetle that he'd painted a big smiley face on with his friend. Soon, Nan started having headaches quite badly. She was in bed for a couple of days, and wasn't making the bugs anymore because of the pain. Alan was working most days, and Nan's ear had begun to bleed, but she wouldn't see a doctor. "Look after her, lad." Alan ruffled my hair before he left. "Love you, Dad," I said as the door closed. I watched TV all day, kept checking on Nan, who was asleep way past lunch. That's when Nan came downstairs. "You okay, Mum?" I asked. She waved me off. "I'm fine. Nothing a couple of paracetamol won't fix." She wasn't fine. I could tell. She was walking differently for a start, and was leaning on the sideboards to get around the kitchen. She downed 2 paracetamol, and I followed her into the living room where she lay down on a big red rug in front of the coal fire. I remember the rug. It was the same one I used to sink my hands deep into after a bath. She was face down and seemed to relax. Her whole body just kind of sank. I just sat watching her breathe. The TV was off, and the light shone through the window in front of her face. If she fell asleep, I'd cover her up and put the fire guard in place of the coal fire. Around 40 seconds